True distraction is he divorces his wife, then discovers he's pregnant by thoughts. So the link to the video will be the description on below. Go and check them out. So let's into distraction in 3, 2, 1. Wow. He divorces his wife, then discovers he's pregnant. Uh oh. Spider news. Oh.
Old Garrett Hayes signed his divorce papers. His ex-wife. When 31-year-old Garrett Hayes signed his divorce papers, his ex-wife's final words cut deep.
Yeah.
"You're completely useless to me." 3 weeks later,
Oh.
Garrett collapsed at work with mysterious stomach pains. What the ER doctor found on the
Mm.
ultrasound screen made everyone in the room go silent. Garrett's nightmare was just beginning, and his ex-wife had no idea what she'd walked away from. Garrett Hayes seemed like he had everything figured out. At
Yeah.
31, he was a successful architect in Portland, Oregon, with a beautiful home and what appeared to be a perfect marriage to Sloan Bennett, a corporate attorney. But their 3-year marriage had been crumbling under one impossible pressure:
Really?
Sloane's desperate need for a child. What Sloane didn't know was Garrett's deepest secret. He was transgender. Born female, he'd transitioned at 19, testosterone therapy,
Yeah.
top surgery at 22, bottom surgery at 26. By the time he met Sloane at 28, he'd been living fully as a man for nearly a decade. His deep voice, beard, and masculine build raised no questions. Garrett had never told Sloane. He looked and lived as any other man, so he'd convinced himself it didn't matter. But during his bottom surgery, he'd kept his uterus and ovaries. The removal would have added significant cost and recovery time. Since testosterone had shut down his reproductive system completely, those organs seemed irrelevant. Until Sloane became obsessed with having a baby. "I need to be a mother,
Really?
Garrett," she'd plead. "It's all I want." Trapped and terrified of revealing his truth, Garrett finally admitted part of it. "I can't produce sperm. I'm infertile." Sloane was quiet, then determined. "Then we'll use donor sperm. I don't care about genetics. I just need to carry our child." But weeks later, Sloane came
Really?
home with a devastating question.
Yeah.
"Garrett, do you have a uterus?" His silence was answer enough. "You could carry our baby," Sloane whispered. "We could use my eggs, donor sperm, and you could be the surrogate. Please, I'm begging you." After weeks of Sloane's desperate pleading, Garrett agreed. He told himself it was love, but deep down, he knew it was fear. Fear of losing her, fear of revealing his complete truth. At Pacific
Yeah.
Fertility Clinic, Garrett had to disclose everything to Dr. Nina Castellano. "You're a trans man who's retained your uterus and ovaries," she confirmed. "We'll need to stop your testosterone for several months before embryo transfer." The process was brutal. Garrett stopped testosterone, and his body began changing in ways that triggered severe dysphoria. His skin softened. His emotions felt unstable. He was losing himself. Sloane underwent painful egg retrieval. The clinic created 8 viable embryos using her eggs and donor sperm. 4 months later, Dr. Castellano transferred 2 embryos into Garrett's uterus. Then came 2 agonizing weeks of waiting. 14 days after the transfer, they sat in
Yeah.
Dr. Castellano's office. "I'm sorry," the doctor said gently. "Your HCG levels are negative. The embryos didn't implant. The IVF failed." Sloane's face crumpled. That night,
Really?
she was silent. Within days, she'd moved to the guest bedroom. 2 weeks later, she served Garrett with divorce papers. "I can't do this
Oh.
anymore," Sloane said, her voice cold. "We tried, and it failed. Spending my life with you is useless. You can't make me pregnant, you can't get pregnant yourself, and you can't give me a child, the only thing I needed. I'm 33. I've wasted 3 years. I need to find someone who can actually give me a family." The divorce was brutal and quick.
Wow.
6 weeks later, it was finalized. Garrett signed the papers in numb silence. Sloane's final words haunted him. "You couldn't give me the one thing I needed." She moved out that weekend. Garrett immediately resumed testosterone therapy, desperate to feel like himself again. For weeks after the divorce, Garrett started feeling sick. Intense morning nausea, crushing exhaustion. His
Ooh.
stomach felt bloated and tender. Just depression from
To be to be pregnant? Morning no stuff. Should he be pregnant?
from the divorce, his colleague suggested.
Yep.
Breakups mess with your body, but the
Um, some of it could be true. It,
symptoms intensified. Garrett craved pickles and ice cream.
pick up, yep, he pregnant. Yep, he is 100% pregnant. Look, because in ice cream. Yep, he's pregnant. Yep,
Then couldn't look at meat without gagging. He cried during random commercials.
yep, he pregnant. Yep,
His sense of smell became super sensitive. After 10 days of morning vomiting, Garrett went to the ER, convinced he had a serious illness. At Portland
yep.
General Hospital, Dr. Yuki Nakamura reviewed his history. You had IVF 14 weeks ago with a negative result? Yes, that's what ended my marriage. Dr. Nakamura's expression changed. Early tests can give false negatives if HCG is too low. Given your symptoms, nausea, vomiting, fatigue, food aversions, I want to run
And also pickles in craving pickles in ice cream. That's some pregnant.
tests and do an ultrasound. Garrett's heart raced. You think I'm pregnant? But the test was negative, and I've been
Yep,
back on testosterone for 6 weeks. Let's check to be sure. 20 minutes later, Dr. Nakamura returned with an expression between amazement and concern.
yep.
Garrett, look at this ultrasound. On the screen was an unmistakable image, a fully formed fetus with a strong,
Oh,
flickering heartbeat. You're 14 weeks pregnant. The early test was a false negative, but the embryo implanted
oh, a false negative. Ooh, that means it was implanted successfully. Ooh,
it successfully. You've been pregnant this entire time. Garrett
wow.
stared at the screen, unable to breathe. That's Sloane's baby, the one she wanted so desperately.
Yep.
Yes, the IVF worked. Your ex-wife's biological child is growing inside you. Garrett put his head in his hands. She divorced me because she thought it failed. She
Yep.
said I was useless. And the whole time, I was carrying her baby. For
Yep.
3 days, Garrett told no one. He stared at the ultrasound photo, trying to process the impossible situation. At 14 weeks, termination was still possible. Nobody knew except his doctor. He could end it and never tell Sloane. But every time he considered it, he remembered Sloane's devastation when the doctor said the test was negative. She'd
Yep.
wanted this baby more than anything. Garrett was a
Ooh.
man. Being pregnant triggered intense dysphoria. Looking at his changing body made him want to crawl out of his skin. But this was Sloane's child, the
Yep.
baby she desperately wanted. Garrett called his sister Monroe. What do I do? If I terminate, Sloane never knows she could have been a mother. If I
Yep.
continue, I have to tell her everything. What do
Yep.
you want, Garrett? He placed his hand on his belly. I want to give Sloane what she wanted most, even if it destroys me. 1 week later, Garrett stood
Ooh. Yep.
outside Sloane's new apartment. When she opened the door, her eyes were hard. What do you want, Garrett? We're done. The IVF worked. Sloane froze. What? The pregnancy test was a false negative. I'm 14 weeks pregnant. I'm carrying your baby. Her apartment keys clattered to the floor. She stared at his midsection, where a small bump was visible. You're pregnant. With my baby. For
Yep.
14 weeks. And
Yep.
you're just telling me now. I didn't know. The test was negative. You divorced me. I only found out a week ago when I went to the ER. Sloane sat down hard against the wall. I told you that you were useless, that you couldn't give me a child. And the whole time, you were carrying my baby. I'm so sorry, Garrett whispered. But this is your baby. You wanted to be a mother. I couldn't take that away from you. Sloane stood slowly and placed her hand on his belly. There's really a baby in there? Our
Yep.
baby. Do you want to see the ultrasound? Garrett and Sloane navigated an impossible situation. They weren't married. Sloane was dating someone new. But Garrett was carrying her biological child. I want to
Yep.
be involved, Sloane said. I want to be this baby's mother. Garrett stopped testosterone again,
Wow.
spiraling back into dysphoria. His belly grew. He took medical leave as the pregnancy became visible. Sloane attended every appointment. At the 20-week scan, they learned the baby's sex. It's a girl, Dr. Castellano announced. Sloane burst into tears. A daughter. They named her Wren. At 38 weeks, Garrett had a cesarean section. When the baby's cry filled the operating room, both Garrett and Sloan were sobbing. She's here, Sloan whispered, cradling Ren. She's really
Oh,
here. Garrett resumed testosterone immediately. Over the following months, his body returned to its masculine baseline. Sloan became Ren's primary parent, with Garrett in an active but secondary role. They figured out co-parenting, not as a couple, but as two people who loved the same child. You went through hell for me, Sloan told him when Ren was 6 months old. You let your body do something that went against everything you are, just so I could be a mother. Garrett looked at Ren, reaching for his face. She was worth it. You deserved to be her mom. Garrett's case taught doctors about false negative pregnancy tests in transgender patients. Early HCG levels can be too low to detect, leading to devastating mistakes.
yeah.
But the deeper lesson was about sacrifice. Garrett endured months of dysphoria and physical agony to give his ex-wife the child she desperately wanted.
Oh,
Today, Ren is 18 months old. She calls Sloan Mama and Garrett Gargar. Sloan is engaged to
go
someone
go.
new. Garrett is rebuilding his life, his body fully remasculinized. He's still a man. He's also someone who carried a child for 9 months because love demanded it. So here's my
Yeah.
question. When our bodies can do something extraordinary for someone we once loved, even at great personal cost, what do we owe them? And how do we define family when it's created through sacrifice, divorce, and second chances? What would you have done if you were Garrett? If you were Sloan? Drop your thoughts below. Because sometimes the test says negative, but life finds a way anyway.
Yeah. If I would go with, I would say, since she always wanted a family, so I would as uh to the mini upon that, yeah, because she really wanted a family, so for if I would go with, I would total right away. The second upon that, yeah.
And sometimes the greatest gift we can give is the one that costs us everything.
Ooh, that was he divorces his wife, then discovers he's pregnant by Decker Toss. The link to the video will be the description below. Go in second month and drop a like if you like. And comment below if you want to see more reaction like this one. And subscribe if you're new and click the bell so you can be notified when I upload in what. Bye. Wow.